everyone, my name is Cherry and welcome back to my channel Cherry on the Cake. Today I'm going to share with you the book summary of this book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. Because when we are on our manifestation journey, we have a lot of questions and confusions in our mind. Like, what is the role of meditation in the process of manifestation? What about law of karma? All these questions are beautifully and simply answered in this book. And I bet that you haven't read this book yet because it is quite underrated when we talk about manifestation. But trust me, guys, this book can build the foundation in which you can create your own building of manifestation. It explains the 7 spiritual laws which, if you follow, you can have any desire that you want in your life. Along with the laws, it also mentions that how you can apply those laws in your life. So without any further delay, let's get started. It explains the first law as law of pure potentiality or the law of unity. It says that at most fundamental level, we are pure consciousness, and this consciousness is nothing but a field of infinite creativity and infinite possibilities. The more we are connected to our true self, the more we can access the field of infinite possibilities and pure potentiality. It differentiates the true self from our ego self. The true self feels beneath no one and superior to no one because it is based on the concept of unity, that the entire diversity of life has an underlying unity of spirit, whereas our ego self is limited and is mortal. The ego self is nothing but a social mask and the self-image. It is based on fear and it tries to perpetuate itself through object referral. It derives its power from status, money, or things that are very temporary in nature. So, the whole point is to shift from ego self to our true self. The ego self perpetuates itself through continuous thought and create a lot of turbulence in which the manifestation is not possible. Therefore, we need to shift from ego self to our true self, where there is infinite silence and there is a ground for creativity. You can understand this with a simple example of throwing a stone in a still pond. There will be ripples all over the surface of water. But if the water is turbulent and then you throw into it an Empire State Building, you will not be able to notice any difference. Likewise, if we want to manifest and create ripples in the infinite field of possibilities, we need silence. The author suggests 4 ways in which we can imbibe the first spiritual law of success. The first way is to maintain and practice silence. In this period, we don't need to watch any television, read a book, or speak to someone. We just need to sit in stillness. Initially, you can do this for 1 hour or 2 hour period, but with time, you have to extend this period. And occasionally, you can do this for 1 complete day or even 1 entire week. When you will do this in beginning, you will feel anxiety and an urge to speak. But with time, your mind will surrender and you will experience the joy of stillness. The second way in which we can use this law is through meditation. We have to sit in silence and focus on our breath, or there are a lot of other meditation that you can do to experience the first spiritual law of success. The third way in which we can use this law is by the practice of non-judgment, because when we judge things as right and wrong, we squeeze the gap between the thought, and that gap is our gateway to the field of pure potentiality. You can set a target for yourself that I will not judge anything for the next 1 hour or 2 hours, and then you can extend this time period. And the fourth way is by spending time in nature. You can sit alongside a river or a lake, even oceans, and even if that is not available, you can hear the sound of bird chirping, you can watch a plant grow, or you can just focus on the drops falling from the sky. Now let's talk about the second spiritual law of success, that is the law of giving. Or I should correct myself, the law of giving and receiving. The author says that the entire life is nothing but a flow of energy. The giving and receiving are the 2 sides of the same coin. The act of receiving is incomplete without giving, and the act of giving is incomplete without receiving. there is no debt in the universe that remains unpaid. And the author gives the example of blood. The blood, when flows, it sustains the life, but when it starts to be static, it clots, it coagulates and restricts the very flow of life. Likewise, if you have a habit of hoarding money, you are restricting the abundance, because the affluence by its very word, which means the flow of abundance. And according to this law, if you want abundance in your life, spread abundance in the life of others. If you want love, start giving love. If you want respect, start respecting others. Anything that you want from universe, you must first give it to others. If you want love, give love. If you want respect, give respect. If you want material abundance, help others to achieve material abundance. Whatever you want in your life, you must give it first to others. Now you will say that I am not abundant enough to give others the material things. That's okay. If you don't have that much capability, you can always gift non-material things. If you visit someone in their house, you can bring a flower, a note on which you can write your feelings. The non-material gifts are actually more powerful than the material gifts. The author suggests 3 ways in which you can put this law into practice. The first is by determining that whenever you will encounter a person, you will gift them something. It could be a card, it could be a flower, or anything, a blessing, a prayer, anything that you can give. The second way in which you can put this law into practice is by receiving the gifts beautifully that others give to you. A blessing, a card, a flower, or any material thing that others give to you, be grateful for it. And the third way in which you can put this law into practice is by keeping in circulation the energy of love, affection, caring. Now let's move to the third spiritual law of success, that is the law of karma, or the law of cause and effect. The author explains the law of karma beautifully in a quote, saying that our thoughts, words and deeds are the threads of the net that we throw around ourselves. The karma not only include the actions that we do, but it also include the consequences of that action. The karma implies the action of conscious choice making. At every moment of our life, we are making some or the other choices. Whether we are making it consciously or unconsciously, that is a different matter. You believe it or not, your life at this present moment is just the result of choices that you made in the past. Let's understand this with an example. Suppose I insult you right now. You are most likely to be offended, and if I praise you, most likely you will be flattered or pleased. But still, it's a choice. It is up to you whether you are pleased or offended. Likewise, in every moment of our life, we have a choice. But it doesn't feel like, because we have conditioned reflexes. Due to these conditioned reflexes, we are triggered by the people and circumstances around us rather than making conscious choices. We have become like a Pavlov dog. In Pavlovian experiment, you could have seen that every time he used to feed the dog, he rings the bell before it. And next time when he rings the bell, the dog starts producing saliva even when the no food is served. It's not that we are not making choices. We are making choices, but unconsciously. Now, what we need to do is bring those unconscious choices that we are making from unconscious realm to the conscious realm. The author suggests that every time we are doing something, we need to ask ourselves 2 questions. The first question is, what are the consequences of this action that I am doing? And the second question is, will this action bring happiness to me and those around me? And once you ask this question, you have to take a pause and feel the sensation in your body. There are 2 types of sensation. One is the sensation of comfort, and second, the sensation of discomfort. If the sensation is of comfort, then you can go ahead. But if it is of discomfort, you need to stop there. For a lot of people, these sensations are in the solar plexus, but For most of the people, these sensations come from their heart. A lot of people think that with heart we will make irrational choices, but you don't know that the heart has access to the entire universe and it can compute those things that you don't even know. And if you follow this process every single time, you are making the right choices at right time, leading to what the author says, spontaneous right action. These spontaneous right action will lead you to your dreams. Now, all this was about the karma we are doing right now. But what about the karma that we have done in the past? The author says that there are three ways in which we can deal the karma of our past. The first way is to pay our karmic debt, and most of us are unconsciously doing this, as no debt in the universe goes unpaid. The second way in which you can deal with your karma is by transforming it or transmuting it, by having an understanding that everything that is happening to me at this moment is a lesson for me. Let's say if you are playing and you broke your leg. Now it is quite painful, but if you think that this might be a lesson to play sports safely and how I can use this lesson to evolve and help even others, then you can transform or transmute your karma. Let's say you write a book on how to play sports safely. With this, you convert the adversity into your benefit. The third way in which you can deal with past karma is by transcending it. This can be done through the process of meditation. You can understand this with the example of washing a cloth under a stream. Every time you wash it, you take away few stains, and every time you connect with your higher self, you connect with your spirit. In the meditation, you wash the layers of karma. The author says that every action is karmic in nature. Let's say if you drink a cup of coffee, this action has a memory, and every memory has the potential to create a desire, and with that desire there will be perpetuation of that action again and again. The author says we are nothing but our souls are just bundle of consciousness with seeds of karma, memory and desires. And once we know that we have these seeds of manifestation, we can become the conscious choice maker. To bring this law of karma into action, you need to do three things. The first thing is, today, whenever you are making a choice, be a witness to it. Observe how you are making choices. The second thing is that whenever you will make a choice, you will ask yourself two questions. What will be the consequences of this action? And second thing, will this action bring happiness to me and those around me? And third thing, you will ask for guidance from your heart, and you will notice the signals of comfort and discomfort. If there is discomfort in your heart area or your solar plexus area, you will abandon those actions, and if there is a signal of comfort, then you will go ahead.